Oh, I'm hitting it.
I got it.
Oh, I just hit it.
Who tweeted that?
No one.
All right. Good morning, Gator Nation. What's going on? I'm Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. That is Zach Albaverdi, senior reporter, also of Gators Online. And this is the Gators Online show. As always, Zach, we got a packed edition. You met with a lot of the assistant coaches at Florida over the last week. We've got Gator basketball to talk about. The Gator boys stay hot. We've got some Gator baseball to talk about. We're going to have a special guest. Yeah, Gator baseball starting up this weekend. We got a special guest to come on, a Gator great, who's going to give us the ins and outs of what's going on with Kevin O'Sullivan's team. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Like you said, the Gator boys stay hot. Big win last night.
You know, you don't take any road win in the SEC lightly, right? You just don't, because you saw what happened in Florida's first game of the SEC season, the loss at Missouri. So you never really know. But a huge win, 86-66 in Athens last night. Florida now 18-6 overall, 9-2 in the SEC, number one in the SEC standings. And they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. But we start off with football. Zach, you've had some media availability in the last couple of weeks. Last week it was the head coach, John Summerall. It was the coordinators, Buster Faulkner, Brad White, the strength conditioning coach, Rusty Witt. This week, position coaches. And these are interesting guys. But this is your first face-to-face with these guys. So just, we're going to get into that. But we're going to start with off-season workouts, right? Because isn't that what everybody really wants to know about? So you had some juice this week. Give us what you're hearing. What's the skinny out there?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned getting to hear from Rusty Witt. The last time that we did a show, we were recording this on a Friday, and we had yet to hear from Rusty Witt. So, since then, we had an opportunity to do that, learn more about this gauntlet, which is this workout that he's been putting these guys through over the past month. But also really, just get to hear about his path, obviously through, the ranks and obviously what he did to end up with John Summerall and their, stepbrothers meeting that I wrote about. But obviously what people want to know is what's taking place in the weight room, right? Like how is he instilling toughness and grit? And those are the two things that I kind of mentioned in my intel piece this week. Keith, is that once they got here, assessed the roster, got their pulse on the program, or as good of a pulse as they could get, one thing that they felt like was lacking, with this team was toughness, was, kind of a lack of having an edge. They wanted to see a little bit more fire from these guys. So that's something that they're trying to bring out through these workouts. I think the gauntlet that they're putting these guys through, which is it's a workout that kind of stems from his time at Army, and not in the United States Army, but when he was at Army, and I'm talking about Rusty Witt. And it's designed to really push these guys to the limit. It forces them to work as a team. There's winner and a loser for every single workout, and there's consequences for every single workout. So a lot of this is trying to be established right now. But in terms of standouts, we've dug into a lot. Blake Alderman last week did a piece on the freshmen that have been standing out, and now we've gotten to hear a little bit more about some of the newcomers and some of the returners that are standing out. The guy that you have to start with and for everything that he's done and how big he's been in the weight room is Jaden Woods. Like, this dude, all John Summerall and his staff heard about was how strong this guy was, how much he came in and set the tone as a freshman, pushing weight around. But he's been even more elite and just more of a dude in there than they've anticipated. From everybody that I've talked to, like, they are super excited about this guy, cannot wait to coach him, cannot wait to see what he can do on the field in this scheme. But, I mean, everybody that you talk to, including some of the coaches that we'll get into here shortly, have just raved about this guy. And it's not a surprise, but, again, for this staff and these strength coaches, this is their first time laying their eyes on this dude, and some of the stuff that he's been doing in the weight room has been eye-opening, Keith. And not surprising, too, because we were hearing stuff last year.
I talked to a source recently, and I think people took it the wrong way, but they said compared to what they're doing now, what they used to do was kind of a quote unquote country club atmosphere. And I think people took it to mean it was a country club atmosphere. No, relative to now, it was a country club atmosphere. So it's just gotten harder. But, Zach, the thing is, this, you've been through a lot of coaching changes. The new strength staff is always better, always more intense than the old staff, always 100 out of 100 times. So you never really know, except we kind of know this time. we do kind of know, because you look at the results the last few years, like you mentioned, they didn't feel like the team had an edge. And what did they do in the fourth quarters of big games? They didn't really play with an edge. They just didn't. I mean, that's not even up for debate, to be honest with you, because there were so many games last year, the seasons before, where Florida was in those games in the fourth quarter, just didn't make a play here or there. Wasn't quite tough enough. Look at the USF game last year. Look at the
a lot of games last year.
The 4th and 1 against Georgia, and where you're up a field goal and you have a chance to go up more, and they couldn't get a yard, and you're not going to always get those plays, but they never seem to get those plays. So they needed an edge, and this staff recognized that, and that's the direction they're going in. Besides Jaden Woods, I mean, you got the stuff on the record, Zach, but we all know your best stuff is off the record, cultivating your sources, finding out what's really going on within the program. Who are some guys that you're hearing some things about besides Jaden Woods?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned him a little bit last week, and that was just based off of what people had been saying at the podium. But inside the program and everybody that I've talked to, Emmanuel Oyebadayo has been everything that they bargained for. I mean, they spent a pretty penny to get him. I detailed that in the intel report, and I think that so far this staff is happy with its investment. He's been and look, the guy is still raw and has a lot of development, but like from a trait standpoint, he's jumping out in off-season workouts. The other two guys that I've heard a lot about, and also Blake Alderman, and digging around, he got some stuff about these guys, and wasn't even necessarily asking about transfers, but these guys got brought up, and that's Eric Singleton and Bailey Stockton. They brought in multiple receivers, but those two in particular have really stood out. Eric Singleton for his speed. I didn't realize how fast the guy was. I mean, we're talking about a 10-3 in the 100. I mean, he is legit fast. And then Bailey Stockton, the competitive stuff that the coaches have talked about with him at the podium, that is the stuff that people that have been watching these workouts are telling us. This dude, I mean, nobody wants to win these more than him. Like, he is super, super competitive. Like, it's out there. You notice it. You hear him. And, I mean, he's a guy that multiple people keep bringing up. So, again, these are workouts, but there's something to be said about the competitive edge and that fire, because that's the stuff that they feel like has been lacking, and those are the things that they're looking for. And then on the defensive side, Brendan Bett, I mean, there was a lot of people that were trying to get that guy in the portal. Florida had to really hang on to get him. Gerald Chapman said that he was holding his breath until the portal closed to make sure that Bett didn't leave. But he is actually, and kind of surprisingly, to be honest, Keith, he is like emerged as like a leader in the weight room, and a guy that has been vocal in these workouts. He's been a beast in the workouts, according to people that I've talked to. But he's just a guy that has kind of stepped into this role now. I mean, he's got to be one of those dudes on the defensive line and on the defense in general. And he's somebody that's taken a big step this offseason from what we've heard.
When you're a kid and you screw up and your parents say, hey, you need to learn from this, you need to grow from this. And maybe that's what's happened with Brendan Bett. There did seem, after that USF game last year where he had that egregious spitting penalty that was 15 yards and really helped kind of spark that USF game-winning drive at the end of the game. And the fan base just jumped all over this kid's ass, Zach. And, I mean, he heard about it for days, and people wanted him out of the program and forget about forgiving him. And a lot of people who forgive people did not want to forgive him. And he faced it, right? And but he was so contrite. He was, I hope I'm getting the words right. He really did seem, when you all interviewed him down the road, that did hurt him, that he was stung by that. And how do you respond to that type of adversity? because that's real adversity. You got adversity within the game, obviously, but then you've got real adversity, and real adversity is, people just telling you you're a loser, and that's what he was facing, and it sounds like he has responded to that big time. He finished the season strong last year. He had pretty good stats. He was a valuable player, Zach.
Well, and as I highlighted, Keith, in that piece, like, look, man, if there's one question mark with this team, or at least with this defense, it is nose tackle. I mean, They lost the guy that started the most games at that position, and the guy that is the mold of the type of player that you look for at nose tackle, which is Mekhi Barrow. And by the way, they did everything that they could to keep the guy, but they also didn't have him available at times last year in practice and in games. So Brendan Bett was the guy that had to shoulder that load and kind of play nose tackle when he's not necessarily the nose tackle build, but he's a guy that showed that he could be relied upon and produce at that position. So because they lost Barrow, it was so critical to keep Brendan Bett. And like I said to start, there were several schools that were trying to get this dude in the portal, and it wasn't just him. I mean, it was Joseph Mbachu, who can also play nose tackle, Jeremiah McLeod, who plays their other defensive line position. He was a guy that was coveted by Georgia and some other schools. He's from that state, obviously. And look, man, I mean, they had to keep those guys. Like, they already need to get, I think, take a step on the defensive line. And because of losing some of who they lost and then not necessarily adding a big-time player at that position, you need some of your top returners to come back and to develop and take that next step. So it was so critical to get those guys back. You also have Jamari Lyons too.
That nose tackle position is interesting because, look, you're going to lose. But Barrow, I know they listed him at 340 or whatever. That guy was like 390. I mean, he's a massive guy, all right? You lose a guy that maybe can take a big, massive figure that can take on a couple guys every play. But what you may gain with smaller guys, and by the way, these aren't small guys.
Yeah, we're talking 310, 315.
They're smaller than Barrow. But what you may gain is more tackles for loss, more plays in the backfield, a little bit more of a disruption. Okay, but with the disruption may come a little bit more of a pushback from the offensive line. So, there's some yin and yang to that. But, it was critical keeping those guys. Zach, it's interesting. All these schools were coming after all these guys on Florida. They won 4 games. They had players. There are some players. I don't know whether they had enough players to make the playoff, but they certainly had more players to win 4 games. Zach, from talking to your sources, they said they're trying to get this right? Is it a high level of concern to get there, or do they feel like it's just going to take time and come September, the minds will be right of this team, or do they not know?
No, I don't think that there's a concern. I just think it's an obvious thing that needs to get addressed and tended to. And I think that they feel, I think from the top down, obviously with Summerall kind of leading that charge, everybody within the program, assistant coaches, strength coaches, Rusty Witt, I just think it's going to take time. But this is something that he's had to do at previous stops that he's been to. And obviously you've seen the results and what it looked like. So I don't necessarily feel like they don't have they feel like they don't have the guys that have the mental capacity to play with that edge, to kind of take that on and develop that. I just think it has to be nurtured and emphasized, and that's something that they're doing right now.
All right, we got a special guest, Zach. Why don't you bring him in and introduce him? And
this guy, when he was doing off-season workouts and stuff, they didn't have to worry about his competitive edge and his fire. They knew that dude was going to get across that white line and compete. The only thing that they had to do, Keith, was put some weight on this dude. I mean, he showed up 150 pounds soaking wet, and they're like, this isn't going to work for an SEC pitcher.
But now
look at him now.
Well, I mean, I thought it was Lou Ferrigno for a second there. All right, Jeff Cardozo, Gator legend, Zach. I mean,
am I right on that weight? Jeff is 150 pounds, right?
Yeah, well, 155, so I had 5 more. Yeah, it was, man, that first year was crazy. It was weight room every day, and then they fed me this like 1,500 calorie shake that basically was like syrup. That's how thick it was, and then just trying to put on a whole bunch of weight and do some things. I mean, we never lifted weights in high school back then. Obviously, you're doing it like 12 years old now. It's kind of crazy. It's a different world, but now I wish I could go back to that weight. I'm up to like 230, but it's got that dad bod working.
So what were you at by the time you got done at UF?
Right around 200. I probably the next year was 180 and then 190 and then 200 for my junior year. So that was a pretty good weight with the 6'5" height.
No doubt. So all these guys getting ready to start this season. That's what they're aiming for. Obviously, this is your favorite time of year, Jeff. Baseball gets ready to get started this weekend. Before we dig into this roster and some of the players that you want to talk about, just what's your overall feel for the start of this year and getting to see these guys take the mound?
Yeah, I think any year, obviously under Sully, its expectations are Omaha. It's crazy to think about. You know, we went to Omaha in '98, so technically my first year playing, and then never got back. Like you think, oh, this is easy. This is going to happen all the time, and then you don't get there again until 2005, and then Sully gets here, and now in 18 years he's been 9 times. So I think if you're at Florida, you have that expectation that you've got an opportunity to compete and have a chance to go play on the national stage. And I think for everybody that comes here, that they understand that. You know, the preseason polls suck. I mean, Zach, you know how much I hate all that stuff, and people have no clue. I mean, there's a guy that pitched at LSU, that pitched in the big leagues, and now he's trying to do this kind of stuff, and he picked the Gators, I think, 12th out of 16 teams. I mean, it's just some obnoxious takes are certainly out there, and you never know what's going to happen. Injuries and different things happen. But, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's made the postseason every single time that he's been the head coach at the University of Florida. So pretty special stuff, and I think that's where it is. And, you know, I think with everything you learn, I mean, you guys talk, I'm sure, about the transfer portal all the time. In football, we see the effect in basketball, and now Sully is trying to understand that, you know, hey, I need to probably get older. The theory for him and forever and Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt, it was, I'm going to bring in these freshmen that have got a chance to be really good. I'm going to develop them that first year. By the time they're sophomores and juniors, they're going to be really good. They're going to turn into first and second round draft picks. But, you know, now we're playing guys last year, and you got a freshman that's running out there, and he might have been let's just say the 3rd best right-hander in the state, and you got all these accolades, but he's facing a junior that might have started at Mercer or something, but he's got, I don't know, 200 innings under his belt. Like, I'd rather go have that guy, because as we sit there and, you know, talk about strength and everything else, freshmen are scrawny. They're not ready to play at this level yet. And, you know, I think by the time that they're juniors and, you know, seniors, and you know, may not be good enough to go to the next level, but I'd rather have a college senior that's 22, 23 years old with a lot of muscle, a lot of experience, as opposed to this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshman that may not have a clue what he's doing yet.
Well, let's start with your baby, Jeff, and that's the pitching staff. Obviously, some studs coming back, but then some competition that we've been waiting to shake out. Big news that came out yesterday, as you projected, with Cooper Walls being named as the Sunday starter. What do you think about that news? Obviously, the guys leading the charge on Friday and Saturday, and then the rest of the bullpen.
I mean, you might as well just call them the best athletes on the planet. I mean, that's what pitchers are. I mean, Keith even knows that. You look at Sully's best teams, they certainly could pitch and they can play defense. That's what that 2017 team was, when you got Faedo, Singer, and Coar, 3 big leaguers that are toting the hill every single weekend, and you got a chance to be pretty special. And everybody's praising Liam Peterson, and I hope he can figure it out. A good regular season, but you look at what he's done in the postseason, it's a little bit scary. You know, it's a high earned run average. Wasn't able to do much even last year on the road. So that's the jump that he has to make. I think we all know that he's got a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, a slider that's going to mess a ton of people up. But what can he do when Florida gets to the postseason? Like, you have to be Alex Faedo from that year. You have to be some of these fine Friday night guys if you're going to win championships. So all good there. You don't have to worry about Aiden King and his competitiveness. Comes back now as a sophomore, and that guy competes his ass off. And I'm really looking forward to seeing now what he can do a year better. And then, you know, as you mentioned, I think Cooper Walls it's really a cool story. I mean, this is a guy that's from California, went to Hawaii, and ended up being the conference.
I'm so jealous.
I mean, that was the visit I kept trying to take, and I guess I wasn't good enough for them to give me a visit out of high school. So He does that. I wouldn't say he's a project, but he was a winner. But he's a guy that's throwing like 91, 92 last year. And then he gets into the program, starts developing under this strength staff. And, they do a great job. You've got the pitching lab here. And now all of a sudden he's throwing 96, 97 with the same kind of movement that he had. So he's raised about 5 or 6 miles an hour on his fastball, and he's just been dominant. So I think it's fun to see because you didn't know what you were going to get with a guy like that. Some guys just never making that jump from freshman to sophomore year. He's gotten stronger, obviously. And I mean, he's got a chance to be pretty damn good on Sundays. If you can run a guy out there like that on Sundays, you've got a chance to win the entire series because of it.
And then obviously a lot of new faces as well that they've brought in that we'll get to see outfield, infield. Just what do you think about the rest of the roster and some of the new pieces that they brought in?
Yeah, and again, like I was talking a little bit about, these older guys on the mound is really what Sully was trying to get. So you go out and, you get a guy that's pitched at UCF for a couple of years, get a guy that's been at Notre Dame for several years. Last year, you're bringing in freshmen in these high leverage situations. It's like first and second, nobody out, and they couldn't get out of the inning. And I don't know if they knew how to handle it yet. But now when you can bring in guys that have been there, done that, who have been starters, been relievers, I think you've got a much better chance to be successful. So really excited about some of those guys he's brought in from the transfer portal from the pitching staff standpoint. And then you brought in Jaden Bastian, a guy from Jacksonville who was, I think, slated to hit probably 2 or 3 hole. And He goes and breaks his leg in the fall. So that's a really big loss. I think that lightens the outfield a little bit. I mean, you still have Blake Sear coming back. You've got Yost coming back. Kyle Jones is back after only playing for the first couple of weeks last year. So I think you can pencil Jones into center field, and then the rest of the corners are kind of to be determined. I would think opening day, Sully would, play those veterans. So I would think Blake Sear would be in right. Yost would be out in left. I mean, you've got guys that can cover a lot of ground. And, Sear's got a sneaky good arm out there for right field as well. And then you've got a couple of freshmen that have been really, really good in some of these springs. You got Jacob Kendall and Cash Strayer. I think they'll play as freshmen early on as well. I don't think you'll see the same lineup in the first 3 weeks, like anytime. So it makes it really hard as a broadcaster because, sometimes you can cheat by the end of the year and write the lineup before you get there because but, with these guys and trying to figure out roles and different things. And I think it's going to be the same in the infield as well. I mean, we all know that how good some of these guys were last year. But all of a sudden, you're going to probably put Brendan Lawson at short. I mean, he might be the opening day shortstop where you brought in Sam Miller, who was he was the conference player of the year in the Ivy League last year. He just hasn't necessarily shown that he can be an everyday shortstop at the SEC level. So you obviously got to put the best guys out there on the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lawson's playing short. You got Ethan Surowick, the guy they brought in from Ole Miss, who's going to he's going to be a stud. Cade Curlin's back, who before last year started, I thought Curlin was going to be the best hitter on the team. So that was a really big injury for that to happen. And then if Lawson's not playing first, then you've got a couple of guys in Landon Stripling and Caden McDonald who can play first. And McDonald's a really interesting story. This is a guy that was a two-way player in high school. He was an absolute stud and probably a better hitter, but then he got hurt his freshman year, said he didn't want to hit anymore, only wanted to pitch. So we saw him on the mound last year. And at the very end of the year, when all these guys are getting hurt, Sully says, dude, you are a really good hitter. I need you to hit. So he starts taking batting practice when we get to the regional, and he's hitting bombs left and right. They got him in at bat where he drove in a run, and then they sent him off to play in the Cape this summer. And he ends up being second in the Cape Cod League and hitting home runs. So all of a sudden, this dude's a hitter again. So I think he's got a chance to play first or DH and kind of be a big part of this lineup. And then, losing Heyman last year really stunk. I think that was kind of the final straw when the Gators lost their catcher. But they brought in 3 different guys to kind of solidify that role, 3 older guys that have been there, done that. So guys that, know how to catch, know how to hit. I don't know if the power is necessarily going to be completely there, but you'll have dudes back there. So I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be a team that's got a lot of depth again. They'll figure out roles by the time conference play rolls around over these first couple of weeks, and then we'll just see what happens. But like anything else, you got to be able to pitch. If you can pitch, you got a chance to win.
Jeff, I just got a couple questions. How you've been doing this a long time, and O'Sullivan's been doing it a long time. How deep into the season How deep into the season before he sits there and realizes sort of what he has or doesn't have?
Yeah, I think it's probably right around conference play, Keith. It's, so you look at these first couple of home weekends, and that's why he doesn't really like to go on the road. Like as selfish as I would like, you've got all these teams that are going to LA or San Diego and playing in these tournaments opening weekend, or going to play in, the Ranger Stadium in Texas. I was like, that'd be kind of cool, or go to Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, Sully, we need these kind of trips, but he likes to be at home to be able to figure all that out, because he knows how hard this league is and how much of a grind it is. I mean, you look at the Gators schedule when it comes to SEC play. I think 8 of the 10 were in regionals last year. 5 of them hosted regionals for what they're going to get. So I think by that first weekend, and it's South Carolina this year at home, he'll have that lineup that says, okay, here's my 9. We've given you enough time to figure it out. And, I think by then he'll see who's scared, who's not scared, who obviously can handle it. And they'll go from there. And and it's rare too that you have the same 3 guys in the rotation. You had that a couple of years ago when you had Sproat, Waldrop, and Kaggs. They were the Friday, Saturday, Sunday throughout the whole year. But I mean, there's so many other years where it's not those same types of guys. But you've got 3 dudes that hopefully can be those Friday, Saturday, Sunday guys too, where you just pencil them in the lineup all the time.
Okay. Zach, did you want to ask anything else, or can I ask one historical question?
Go for the whole history.
Right. So Jeff, when I was a little kid, I used to go to the old Perry Field, not the one people remember, the one that had that lump in the outfield and bleachers. And so there were a lot of great players through the years. Mike Stanley, the great catcher in the major leagues. Jeff Gidcombe, the pitcher on the first World Series. Johnny Wiggs, first pitcher on the World Series. Dave Falcone, the great first baseman in the 70s. So many great players. And I wonder, if you did the Gators baseball, we always talk about basketball and football Mount Rushmores. The Gator baseball Mount Rushmore. O'Sullivan's got to be on it. But who would be your 4 guys in the history of the program? And we didn't plan for this. We didn't give you any heads up on this. So I know it's off the top of your head. But look, you're deep in the program. You've been in it. You've played in it. You've followed it forever.
And you can't pick all pitchers, Jeff.
That's right. I mean, I'm just wondering, again, you're an authority, maybe the authority. I want to know what you think.
It's a great story. I mean, I think the guy that's probably going to make more money than anybody else is Pete Alonso, but I wouldn't put him on there because Pete was hurt a lot while he was here. A couple of, good games in the World Series, but it is fascinating. I would have never told you that I would have seen, because I played with him. And it's a great question, Keith, because I think if you think about it, I got to campus in 1997. So, so all those games all throughout when I was playing, and then started broadcasting really immediately. And that first year I was done, I was up in the press box and I was the official scorer, so to speak, hanging around. And then on the broadcast that very next year. So I've seen basically every Gator baseball game since 1997, which is like nuts to think about. So that's 30 years almost. I would have said Brad Wilkerson's the best player I've ever seen. So he's got to be on there.
Yeah.
And then of course Kaggs comes along and does what he does. So I think out of the 2, it's always going to be Brad Wilkerson and Jack Caglione for what he was able to do and the impact that Kaggs had. I don't know if we saw enough of Wyatt Langford, but he was obviously tremendous in the couple of years we got to see him. So, I have to put Zunino on there. So then there's 3 hitters. He's, the National Player of the Year, the only guy to win the Golden Spikes Award in a Gator uniform. And then if you had to pick one pitcher, there's so many, but Brady Singer's probably my favorite.
I knew you were going to go that.
Just from that, that attitude, F you, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna step over that white line and you're not gonna beat me today. I think having that mindset, and Faedo's a close second when it comes to that. There's been a lot of studs on the mound over the years, but yeah, I think probably none more favorite than Brady Singer. So those would be my 4. And that's only one pitcher on there, Zach.
Damn, that's pretty good.
Jeff, I think the team, we'll get into this another time, but I feel like the team that's sort of the forgotten team. You got the one national title team, you got all the World Series teams. But, man, when you go back, and this is before your time and I was a little kid, but, man, when you look at the lineup on that 85 team, holy cow, that's the team that blew it down. Zach, you may know, you may not. They blew it down in Miami at a regional. We're just a few outs from making the World Series and just had this epic collapse. And I think Miami might have gone on and won the whole thing. Yeah. But just loaded with talent. It's amazing when you really think about it. And there's guys in the 60s and 70s we're not even talking about, we've never even heard of, that were great players too.
What's your Mount Rushmore of just pitchers, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So then obviously Singer's on there. I think Faedo's on there. I mean, he was the most outstanding player on that 2017 team. I mean, he won 3 times in Omaha and got the Gators to the finals. So, I mean, 2 guys from the same staff. I mean, that's how special
crazy.
it was. I'd probably have to say Logan Shore for what he was able to do here. I mean, his freshman year was absolutely incredible to have an earned run average of like under 2. And then I guess it's not really fair, and maybe that's why the Gators won. But I mean, you look at the 2 years that Michael Byrne had, and the all-time leader in saves here. I mean, so if you're going to a closer,
it's a Mount Rushmore with the closer as your 4th, baby.
Yeah. So you got to put Michael Byrne there. I mean, he had 2 seasons in a row with an earned run average under 2. And it's nuts to think about all the big games that he had to come in, all the outs that he had to get. But that's what's fascinating. Keith, you talk about different eras and different things that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
My junior year, I was a Saturday starter, and I was good. I had a 6-2 record, and we blew a lot of games just because of the way the hitters were. That's when all the guys were taking steroids and everybody using those cheating bats. So it was a bad time to be a pitcher. But my earned run average that year was like 4.23, and you tell that to somebody who's like, man, Cardozo sucked. That guy was 40 ERA, but like back then, I think it was like 3rd best in the league. So that's how hard it was to pitch back then. And obviously then the bats changed, and you've gone through different ups and downs and different things that have happened. But it's hard to compare history sometimes, but certainly a lot of fun. I mean, it's been really cool to see all these guys over the years to pitch against them, to broadcast with them, stuff like that.
Zach, and I know I pulled away from this current team, and I'm sorry for doing it, but I just have one more quick question, Jeff. If there one Gator player that you never saw play, was before your time, that you're like, damn it, wish I could have seen that dude play. The one guy?
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe Robbie Thompson was here.
Very good player. That's right.
So I think that's a guy that I wish I would have been able to see in college. Probably the first one that comes to my head.
What year was that?
That would have been early 80s, I think.
Yeah, early 80s. They went on to play for the San Francisco Giants, had a really nice career with them.
Jeff, before we get you out of here, we've been talking about off-season workouts and obviously this new staff. A couple of these guys, familiar with them. Just what are your early impressions and kind of what they're trying to establish here this off-season?
You mean from a baseball standpoint, or
no, for football?
For football, it's I mean, you know me, and for those that don't, like I really believe that you have to have the mindset to compete. Like you can't be soft, and I think over these last couple of years, you've seen guys maybe take on the personality of Billy Napier, who again I think one of the nicest guys to be around. I love having conversations with him. I mean, you'll sit there and he'll want to talk about you as opposed to you wanting to talk about him. And, there's not a lot of people that are like that. But I also think you need to have that mindset of, hey, I'm going to absolutely destroy you today. And I don't know if all the guys had that. So I love the energy from Summerall. I mean, obviously the 2 Gators that I know and Bam Hardman and Phil Troutline, I mean, that's their mindset. That's their mentality. So I believe that that's what they're going to work on. They do have to change a culture in my mind. It's like, hey, you can be as nice as you want off the field, but if you don't turn into somebody different on the field, then you're never going to be successful. And I was fortunate enough to learn that from, as we're talking about history, Keith, like David Ross was the catcher on that 98 team. And I mean, he dog cussed me left and right and all these things, but I mean, he got me to compete. Like I was just kind of this goofy class clown, Mr. Nice Guy off the field. And I remember giving up a homer to Pat Burrell. It was down in Miami.
At the bat. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, ends up being the number 1 pick. I did strike out Burrell, though, earlier in the game. So at least I have that. But, he hits a ball that's still orbiting Earth. This is how far he hits the ball. And Miami wins. And Rossi walks out to the mound and he grabs me like right here. And he says, if you don't effing figure this thing out, you're never going to get it or be successful. And I didn't really know what it meant. So I got the opportunity to go to his hotel room, later that night. And that's what he said. It's like, everybody is good when you get to the University of Florida. So throughout all the high school stuff, all these other things, like if you don't have the mindset that you're going to beat the guy that's 60 feet, 6 inches away from you, in my case, or, beat the guy that's now standing mano a mano, if he's the the D lineman and you're the O lineman, if that guy has the edge mentally, he's probably going to beat you. So I think that's what Summerall and the rest of the staff have to have. And you're lucky you've got a strength coach that now has been in combat and seen all these things and understands that kind of it's almost like it's going to war every single day. And if they can get that mindset, obviously there's a really talented group here. But that's what needs to change first. I mean, look at the successful teams. I mean, look at those guys under Urban, some of the things he made them do. I mean, Spurrier was nice, but you guys know he had that little edge to him. And he would make you feel bad if you weren't competing. So get back to that. And then we'll get back to the Florida football that we know from the heyday.
All right.
No doubt. And we're back to Florida baseball on Friday. Jeff will be on the call. You can listen to him on WRUF ESPN Gainesville. Jeff, we appreciate the time, my man, and have a great season on the call.
Yep, sure, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you, man.
Yep.
All right. The great Jeff Cardozo.
He's great, man. He's great. You get so much insight. And then other sports, do you know what I mean? Like he's got his ear to the ground. He knows people, and he's just fantastic. And every time I run into him, I feel like I'm smarter because he teaches me something about UF. Just awesome getting him on. All right. Zach, before we get on to basketball, can we just finish up? Can we do a little bit more football? You cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because you got to meet all these guys for the first time. Like some of them you may know, and you got a hell of a story with Bam Hardman. I love this one, but you got to meet them, most of them at least, first time. And I just want to get your first impressions on the new assistant coaches at Florida. And that's it, just quick first impressions. Just I talked to this guy, and man, he's sharp. Give us a.
Well, one thing that sticks out to me, Keith, about these guys is they're really happy and excited to be at Florida. Many of them had opportunities to go elsewhere or to stay where they were at, including some of the guys that came over from Georgia Tech, or even Joe Craddock, who came over from Tulane. He had a lot of opportunities, having been the OC there, and came, as you wrote about at Gators Online, Keith, basically to take a demotion to just be the quarterback coach. But the dude wanted to be at Florida with this staff, coaching this Gators program so much that trumped anything else that he had to do or could have been prioritizing, like an opportunity to come with John Summerall at the University of Florida with all these resources. For a lot of these guys was an opportunity that they were not going to pass up. And I think also too, when you look at the ties, certainly it wasn't going to be hard to get Phil Troutwine and Bam Hardman to come to Florida. But I mean, I think Chris Foster, the running backs coach, that was not an easy pull to get him from Duke, and we haven't heard from him yet. But getting Chris Collins, we got to talk to him this week. Super excited about his opportunity to stay in the SEC, stay with Brad White, have an opportunity to coach at a school, Keith, that likes to call itself DBU, or at least has in the past, and kind of what that's going to look like for their secondary. And it was really great to hear Coach Collins just talk about their philosophy on defense and the way that Brad White runs things, how he helps with that. And then also fascinating to hear about Trent McKnight and Marcus Davis, the two wide receiver coaches, what that dynamic is like, how they met, a year ago, and kind of, made that pairing go very smoothly, because you don't often see two wide receiver coaches. So, but just in general, like, again, some of these guys, maybe it wasn't necessarily their best offer out there. They could have went somewhere else and had a better title or got more money, but they wanted to come to the University of Florida, and they wanted to be part of this staff and be part of this team. And I think that he put together a great staff.
Troutwine and Hardman, man, these guys are bleeding orange and blue. It's pretty obvious. And you have a little
team captain.
Yeah. You had a little, I don't want to say running. Running makes it sound like there's a running and a dust up, the same thing.
Well, I did say I ran into Bam Hardman on our board, and people wanted to make sure I was okay.
Tell us the story. How, you didn't just get to interview Bam Hardman recently, the former Gators linebacker who's now the outside linebackers coach. You ran into him somewhere, and tell us what happened there, because it's an interesting story. And I think says a little bit about who he is as a person.
It does, yeah. So we obviously got to hear from Bam Hardman this week. I do the radio show with Jeff Cardozo, who you guys just heard from, Monday through Friday on WRUF, and we do a lot of remote shows. And this week on Tuesday, we were doing our show from Texas Roadhouse. Now, mind you, we just met with Bam Hardman the day before he had his introductory press conference. So interviewed him, wrote about him. Keith wrote about him as well. I think he's familiar with who we are. He certainly knows Jeff because they went to school at the same time together. They were UF athletes together at the same time. So he shows up at Texas Roadhouse for dinner. Has no idea that we're there. Walks by us as we're recording outside. He sees Jeff first, recognizes him, waves at him, sees me. Is like, "What are y'all doing?" And we're saying, "Hey, man, we're doing a radio show." He's like, "Right now?" He goes, "Yeah, man, we're live on air." And he kind of like he kind of like waved and almost like felt bad for maybe interrupting us, but also probably could see that it was more than fine. He walks into the restaurant, goes in there for about 5 seconds, and then comes back out and is like, "You know what? I'm jumping on the headset with these guys." Grabs it and does about 10 minutes with us live on air. Had a chance to catch up with Jeff. I had an opportunity to ask him some questions as well. And he was there, Keith, because he was taking his position group out to dinner. Jaden Woods, Kofi Asari, KJ Ford, the other players that play that jack spot, all those guys showed up to have dinner with him at Texas Roadhouse. So, but just, the fact that he was, ready and willing spontaneously to jump on air like that, talk with us, honestly, I think when he heard that we were on ESPN Gainesville, probably wanted a chance to speak to Gator Nation, Keith, and just having another platform to be able to address fans. The dude's so happy to be back at Florida and just to be able to talk about those times and kind of share some memories with Jeff. It was a really cool moment, and shout out to Bam for doing that. Yeah,
it's the season of hope, Zach. You know what I mean? It's all feel good right now, and in the spring they'll get a little more serious, and then in the obviously when preseason camp starts in August, then we'll see how tight these guys are. Well, actually, we'll see how loose they really are. But right now, everybody's pretty loose. They're chatty in these interviews. I've been reading the transcripts that you send me from these interviews. I've watched some of them, and some of them were a little bit more revealing than others. I mean, Buster Faulkner's not like super revealing. And then some of the guys like Troutwine and Summerall really are. And that's just their own personalities. But it's an engaging staff. They listen to the questions. They try to, it seems like they're trying to give an answer, thinking about the answer and giving you something good. They seem to understand your job. They seem to understand that the media is really, I guess, I hope I'm getting the right word, a conduit, a voice. You guys are getting their message out to everybody, and they understand that. There doesn't seem to be any of this. I mean, maybe that comes with some losses. I don't know, but so far, so good. Of all the coaches you've talked to, which one do you think would maybe? Well, actually, I'll take that back. We keep hearing that John Summerall is going to get out on the speaking circuit at some point. How do you think fans are going to? You've been around him a good bit now already. How do you think fans are going to take him in person? I think they're going to love him, but I want to know what you think because, quite frankly, you've talked to him many more times than I have.
Yeah, he's got great energy, and I think that he's shown that at his introductory presser. He's shown that at the other press conference that he's had with us, even when he visited with us at the basketball game at halftime. Like just a personable, approachable guy, but also a high energy guy that like gets you excited to be around him, to talk about football. Obviously he's a dude that's fired up to be leading this program, and he is going to go out of his way to make an effort to rub shoulders with some of the right people, and obviously the fans and everybody out there that wants the chance to come out to some of these events and get a chance to meet him before the season. But he's also going to get out there, as I wrote about in our intel piece this week, Keith, like he's trying to raise more money for NIL. Like anybody out there that's a potential donor, especially some big time ones that either haven't given to the program or there's a reason why, like he's going to be someone that wants to go and attack that and figure out like what's holding them back, what can he do to win them over. He's just somebody that's I think is going to make that a priority. So, and not only is he going to make it a priority, but I think he's going to be successful in that endeavor because he does have the type of personality and energy and just approach fire that is going to get people fired up about what he's doing. And obviously wins and success are going to help with that. But I tell you what, man, the dude's been winning the offseason so far. I do want to mention one other thing too about these coaches, and we'll get into some UF hoops talk as well. But one thing that I took away from the offensive coaches is like, man, there's a lot of expertise on that side of the ball, right? Like between obviously Buster Faulkner, but the passing game coordinator Trent McKnight, Joe Craddock, who was the offensive coordinator at Tulane, now the quarterback coach. Obviously, you got 2 wide receivers coaches. Like you got Phil Trotwine and his experience. Like, there's just a lot of expertise along with the running backs coach too that you see on that offensive side of the ball. So much so that I'll say this, and I'm projecting way far ahead. But what was Buster Faulkner in the mix for, Keith, before he came to UF or as he was coming to UF?
Well, there were some OC jobs, but there was a head coaching job.
There was a head coaching job, and look, if everybody is thinking that he can do what everybody hopes he can do, if he comes to UF and is successful as the offensive coordinator, he's going to get more head coaching opportunities. And I would imagine if and when those come, he's probably going to bring some guys with him. But to me, there's a lot of guys on this staff that could easily be part of this building this offense and could kind of take over. There's a lot of smart people on that side of the ball that I feel.
I'm getting way in front of myself here, but this feels like on the different side of the ball, this sort of feels like, and Spurrier had been at Florida for many years, but it feels like Buster Faulkner is sort of like a Bob Stoops impact type of hire based on his reputation. This isn't revisionist history. It was a big deal when Florida got Bob Stoops. Okay. And it was a big deal when Florida got Buster Faulkner, a guy that had opportunities. I think Clemson maybe
had a lot of people
out. Had a lot of opportunities.
Auburn.
That's right. And if Summerall goes to Auburn, he probably goes with them. If Summerall ends up at Ole Miss, maybe he goes there too. So it just feels like that this guy, and he's got some similar mannerisms to Stoops too. He's not blinking a lot. He's not into small talk, is he, Zach?
No.
He was the one guy where I'm thinking, okay, he's probably ready to get back into meetings like right now. He did a great job when he met with you guys. I'm not knocking him at all. I mean, he's
a ball coach, man.
That's right. And I hear a lot of good things about him. I also heard he's a big time golfer. I got to work that angle. I just got to find out when he's not working, because apparently the guy's burning the midnight oil over there. Anything else you want to add football wise? Oh, can I say one thing, Zach?
Sure. Yeah.
It was great or not great. It was interesting that Jeff, who is around that program a lot, he said they needed a change in culture. And isn't it interesting, because all we heard about the last 4 years was how great the culture was. Now, that's a subjective thing. But your culture essentially is really only as good as your record at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Sure.
But I thought that was just an interesting takeaway from talking to Jeff. Anything you want to add on football?
Yeah, just to kind of circle back on some of the stuff that we've talked about and what he mentioned. I just the coaches that I haven't maybe dug into yet, like I just really Hardman and Trotwine, like I mentioned it earlier, but just you've had a lot of former Gators on staff before, and all of those guys, if you can get in that role, bring value. But to have 2 team captains back when, if you were a team captain, it meant something. It wasn't this revolving weekly thing that they gave out. Like if you were a team captain, it was a big honor. It was a big deal. And to have 2 of those guys on staff, I just think it brings a different level of passion to this place. These dudes really care about being here. They've wanted to be here. Obviously, we've talked about Hardman, but like another great thing about him is his ties to Summerall. And these guys have been together for 7 years. He's been with them every single year that he's been a head coach, and they were together for 3 years at Troy. So like he is one of his guys, and now he's here with him at the school that he played at, helping him, coach, recruit, develop. It's a huge asset. And then obviously to have Phil Trotwine on the offensive line, helping getting that position right, not only from a development standpoint, but from a recruiting standpoint and acquisition standpoint. Phil has been very aggressive. Corey and Keith have been, or Corey and Blake have been all over it at Gators Online about all these linemen and guys that he's getting Florida involved with. And it's just it's exciting and it's encouraging to think about what those guys will be able to do.
Troutwine, final thought for me. Troutwine, 2 national titles at Florida, 2 SEC titles, 2-time All-SEC player. Man, you hear this guy interviewed, you watch his interviews, you read his quotes, you see what recruits are saying about him. Man, he's impressive as hell. And Bam Hardman, you know what I love about him most, Zach? In 2002, his final year at Florida, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, they were good in 99, 2000, 2001. Remember the 2001 team, the 9/11 year where Florida was this close to playing for a national title and finished number 3 in the AP poll? He was on those teams, but he was also on Ron Zook's first team in 2002. And that was the year, Zach, he had 160-plus tackles, top 5 all-time single-season tackles in school history. You just don't see guys get that many tackles. In fact, the 3 guys in front of him, 3 or 4 guys in front of him, were all from the 1970s. Scott Brantley was one. Sammy Green, the All-American, was another. There's nobody from this era. You don't get that many tackles anymore.
No.
Should have been celebrated. He was an All-SEC player. And you know what he said? Hey, it was great, all those tackles. I had a lot of help. But it was great. But you know what wasn't great? Going 8-5. That sucked. That was a bad memory for him to go 8-5. 2 years ago, 8-5 was a great memory for Florida. And again, that's just schedules change, eras change, expectations change. But that's a guy that looks at 8-5 and sees what could have been, not let's pat myself on the back. And I think those are the guys you want in your program. Those are the guys you want in your program. They have high expectations. It's not just, boy, I'd sure like to win. It's, I'm not walking around after an 8-5 season and congratulating myself. He didn't.
No. And obviously great perspective because that was a huge accomplishment, but it's tainted by those team results.
That's right. All right, basketball, Zach. Got a big one.
Yeah, man. Well, they had a big one last night, too.
That's right. All right, so Florida, as we mentioned, beat Georgia 86-66 last night in Athens. And, in that all-time series, I think Florida now leads like 127-101. But in Athens, Georgia's got a winning record over Florida. So for Florida to go there and win by 20 last night is impressive. Florida's now 18-6 overall, 9-2, first in the SEC, first place, top 10 in the NCAA net rankings, number 5, I think, in Kim Palm's rankings. But Kentucky's coming to town, Zach, on Saturday. Kentucky is 17-7. They pretty much, I don't want to say left for dead, but people were making fun of them not too many weeks ago. They're now 17-7 overall, 8-3 in the SEC, which is second place. Florida's 9-1 in its last 10 games. Kentucky is 8-1 in its next 9. I know you're looking forward to this one, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot wait. Obviously, a lot of storylines that'll be taking place. First place in the SEC is on the line. You got Denzel Aberdeen's return, them being able to come back to the O-Dome for the first time in 2 years because they didn't get the visit last season. And on that note, like I do as to kind of put a bow on last night, like the performances from Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee were incredible. 33 points combined. Both of those guys hit some huge three-pointers in the second half and made some great plays, pushed the floor. That was, I've been saying all season, Keith, there's not been a game yet where Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee both play very well. And that was the first game, although I still think you can get a little bit more from Boogie Flan because he didn't have any assists last night, and he wasn't as hot as Xavier from 3. So maybe still not the best that those two can do in tandem, but like that was the best that we've gotten yet from them. And Florida needed it. Like they absolutely had to have that to be able to kind of keep their cushion that they did in the second half. And I thought that one of the biggest plays of the game was when they got it right back to 10 with 4 minutes to go. And then Lee just hits this 3, just a huge shot. And that started a 9-0 run after Georgia had cut it to 10, and that just killed them. So I say all that to say now we get into this matchup with Denzel Aberdeen. And, there was so much talk in the offseason about, was it worth losing Aberdeen to get, Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee? And it's really just Boogie Flan. Like Xavier Lee was coming. he was committed. Like that was happening. It's, you don't have Boogie Fland if you have Denzel Aberdeen on the team right now. So that's really the give and take that we're looking at, are going to be comparing on Saturday. And again, when these two teams play at the end of the season, regular season. But I don't know. I mean, I think that based on what we've seen so far, and look, Denzel Aberdeen is a great player, but I feel like Florida has gotten pretty much everything that they've wanted from Boogie Fland other than the 3-point shooting. The dude has been doing everything else that they've brought him here for. I cannot wait to see that matchup, though, because it is going to be a topic that people love to debate. But Keith, you and I both know, you were on those message boards with me. I mean, dude, Denzel Aberdeen just used to get it from Florida fans, man. Like they used to crush this guy. And there were so many of them that did not have the confidence in him, that did not want to see him out on the floor, that didn't want to see him run the offense. So, like, I think back to that, and I know that early on in the season and at points, Boogie hasn't been giving Florida fans what they wanted either. But I would imagine the staff feels like they're okay with how things worked out. And I don't know that they'll say that this week. And it also doesn't matter. But it's a talking point. It's something that'll get focused on Saturday. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about it. Fans can talk about it, but once a guy leaves and another guy comes in, the coaching staff focuses on the guy in every sport. They focus on who's there. And, but yet there was always this feast or famine element with Denzel. You know what I mean? He would, 3 great stretches down the floor. You're like, my God, this kid is good. And then the next one, what in God's name was that? You know what I mean? But he had some big moments during Florida's NCAA championship run last spring. I mean, the guy's a good player. All right. And
look, man, he saved that one pass from going out of bounds in the Houston game. That was a huge save.
And you and I both talked to people during the offseason, you mainly, Golden and the people around the program, and they knew that it was going to take time to develop chemistry with the new backcourt, and they're feeling more comfortable. They have their hot games, they have their cold games, but last night you mentioned it. You were right. I think they needed it, and there's going to be times in the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, more importantly, when maybe your guys aren't making shots down low. Maybe they're turning it over. Maybe
foul trouble.
You're getting foul trouble, and you're going to need these guys to step up. So I think coming out of last night, especially being on the road, Georgia doesn't suck, guys. I'm sorry. They don't suck. This is a decent team. They were a projected number 10 seed by Joe Lunardi of ESPN going into that game, okay? So they've got some talent, and they can score, and Florida held them 25 points below their season.
They kept fighting, and they wouldn't go away until Florida that last punch out.
That's right. So that's a talented team. So you think that Lee and Fland, they probably were never truly lacking in confidence, but now it's applied confidence. It's proof of concept confidence. We did it. Not just, hey, I know I can do it. No, now you can do it because you just did it. So big game this weekend. Zach, when I was a kid, man, I'd go to those Florida-Kentucky games at the O-Dome when Florida sucked. And you'd have to sit. My dad would be like, I'll never forget the first time he said, all right, now pay attention, because he'd been going to games back at Alligator Alley before I was even born. He said, all right, keep a close eye here. Watch the blue start filling up the O-Dome, and you wait. That first Kentucky run, you're gonna hear it. Shh, shh, shh. Go Big Blue. And then it just took over the arena. And they'd have half the friggin' people in there. They don't have half the people in the arena anymore at the O-Dome. It's incredible what this Florida program has done since the first Final Four in 1994. Yeah. 3 national titles this century. Kentucky has 1. Yeah, look, think about how hard it's going to be for Kentucky to catch Florida now this century. They got to win 2 national, but they may not win any. So it's incredible where this program is. Golden, and I wanted to ask you something here, Zach. Man, the BTA is getting out there. Right, belt to tush, we'll call it. Yeah, belt to ass, whatever. But he's starting to feel. He's getting a little more confident. It sure looks like he's got these incredible Spurrier traits to him. And I'm telling you, I love this guy. What? How's he feeling about this team right now? You spent some time around him.
Well, here's my favorite Todd Golden story from Wednesday night's game. I got it pulled up on my phone, but. Georgia puts up a shot. I can't remember if they made it or not. I think they made it. and their big guy from Nigeria is down low, just like abusing Condon, like elbowing him, like grabbing him, like shoving him, like just completely completely should have got called for a foul, and it's just not getting called. And so they made the shot. Florida gets the ball. They inbounds it to Lee, and he gets it down, and he throws it ahead to Tommy Houck, and Tommy Houck dunks it. And this was like one of 6 plays where Florida pushed the ball down the court in like 4 seconds. As Lee gets the ball, sees Houck, throws it ahead, and Houck dunks it. Golden is just not paying attention to any of it. And he's just waiting for the ref to come down. And as soon as the ref crosses midcourt, he just gives it to him about what I'm only assuming was Alex Condon basically getting pushed and grabbed in the back as the dude went to try to go grab the rebound, but that they made the shot. He starts giving it to him when Florida's on that end of the floor. Houck gets the dunk. They're going back on the other end. And Todd does not let up the entire time. Like he is just, and obviously, he knows what he's doing, but just like completely oblivious to Florida, just like pushing the floor, getting a big fast break dunk. Like he was so fired up and locked in on what had happened to his guy. And look, man, he sticks up for his guys. Him and his coach and this coaching staff, man, they stick up for their guys. And boy, if they think something was a dirty play, they're gonna ask for a review with the quickness.
He strikes me as a guy that would yell at a ref the whole game, and then if he saw him after the game, would say, "Hey, let's go get a drink." It doesn't. Am I wrong? Is that totally off? Or
no,
he just
and obviously he's. I'm trying to think. Maybe only once in all the years I've covered him, he's gotten teed up. Like so, he knows how to walk the line without crossing the line, and he's going to voice his displeasure and point out things that he and his staff are seeing. But again, he just like you said, it's a lot of the Spurrier traits, and we think all the times my guys on the sideline throwing that visor and calls and things that he would get upset with. Just fiery competitors, man, and that is a trait that they both share.
The best Gator coaches all kind of share a lot of these confident basketball. Well, Billy Donovan wasn't probably as openly, right? I mean, he wasn't as outwardly confident as
sure,
but confident guys.
He'd keep it professional at the podium,
But he was a fantastic interview, right?
Fantastic,
100%.
And he'd call it like it is. He wasn't going to sugarcoat anything.
Sure.
But he won't needle somebody as well as Todd will. And obviously the way Spurrier loved to.
So much emphasis, Zach, is put on the NCAA tournament these days. I get it. That's what it's all about. But, this is still a program that didn't win its first SEC basketball title until 1989, and I think has 7 right now. Would it mean something to these guys to win the SEC?
It would. And look, man, like I know Florida fans don't want to hear this, don't want to think about this. It's really hard to win a national championship. And it's really hard to do it back-to-back. And so as much as this team is capable of that, and as much as that's what they're shooting for, like you want to win the SEC because it's something that you haven't done since 2014. And regardless of what happens in the SEC tournament or in the NCAA tournament, that makes this season successful. And that makes this team be remembered. And I think at this point they deserve to be. And obviously, whatever happens in March could be magical. And that obviously winning the SEC is going to kind of set them up for that and show that they have that capacity. But regardless of what happens in March, you want to get this done because it makes it a successful season. And it's quite I don't think a lot of people weren't necessarily sticking with their guns and saying Florida was going to win the SEC going into conference play after the way non-conference had went. So, and then they dropped their conference opener at Missouri, and what a turnaround it's been. Yeah,
9 out of the last 10 games they've won all time against Kentucky. It's not good. Kentucky leads the series 110-42, but more than half those wins have come in the last like 4 decades. I mean, it's incredible. At Florida, all time, Florida is 26-41 versus Kentucky. Not bad. I need to go into this, Zach. I need to dig into this, but I would be willing to bet that's one of the better records among SEC programs at home against Kentucky. Kentucky basketball, there's not a single program in the SEC in any sport that's been as dominant. Alabama football won all the national titles, but Kentucky from last 100 years. So incredible that Florida is now top dog in the SEC on the national stage, and we'll have to see how this weekend goes. If they win this weekend, I need to point out Arkansas is only a game back as well. Florida has to play the Hogs in Gainesville coming up fairly soon.
Shout out to Lucas. He'll be there.
Lucas, what's going on, buddy? All right. Ready to wrap things up, buddy?
I am, man. Can't wait. Thanks to Jeff for joining us.
Yep.
We'll have coverage of Florida baseball this weekend at Gators Online. We'll have coverage of, obviously, Florida, Kentucky, the latest from Florida football workouts and assistant coach availabilities. And then Keith and Blake will even have some stuff for you guys this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I'll keep that quiet, though.
Yeah, we're going to have some recruiting stuff this weekend. But, all right, for Zach Albaverdi, I am Keith Niebuhr. This was the Gators Online show. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below. Leave a comment. And as always, go to GatorsOnline.com right now. We got free content. Got a story up on Ruben Chinyelu. He's the number 2 rebounder in the country now, Zach, and he is this close to the guy in front of them. The one guy in front of them, they're separated. It's razor thin. So we've got some good free content. We've got some very good premium content that'll really take you behind the scenes of Gator Athletics. So that's it. Everybody have a safe weekend. Have a fun weekend. If you're going to the Gator Invitational Golf Tournament, there's some good boys out there. Keep an eye on them. You got the basketball game. You got baseball. You got softball. You all kinds of stuff going on. We're in the big spring season right now. All right, Zach, take care, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
See y'all.